Welcome back to the channel, everybody. It is I, your host, Mr. Sean, here with my co-host for this episode of Whiskey Ramblings, the one, the only Mr. Charles Entertainment Bear, also known as Chucky Bear. Say hello, Chucky Bear.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me, Mr. Sean.
Oh, you're very, very welcome. Though, while their avatars are different, oddly enough, Chucky Bear looks almost identical to J-Dog from the previous video. They could be brothers.
No, I think we actually might be.
You know, that's from other mothers or same mothers?
You know, that's up for debate.
That's fair. But yes, today, Chucky Bear and I, at least to begin with, who knows what kind of tangents we'll go on, are going to talk about those films where the teenagers get what they deserve, aka horror films.
Goddamn teenagers.
I hate them too. But yes, so before we get started, I will say just a quick channel update, or more so a Patreon update. I did add a couple of different things to the various tiers. We still have the three tiers, the $3, the $5, and the $10. Now, if you join the $3, instead of just getting nothing, which is pretty lame, I don't know why I did that, your name will be added to the list of patrons at the end of each episode. If you upgrade to the $5 a month tier, not only will you get your name added to that list, but you will also get sneak peeks, videos, audio clips, even little video snippets of stuff that I am working on. And if you join the beta club, which helps me build a beta tomorrow, you will not only get all the previous rewards, you will get a verbal shout out at least once a week, and also you will get exclusive voting rights to the channel. So without further ado, I guess we're just gonna get into this. So, I did notice the last time I did one of these videos with a friend, I tend to dominate the conversation. I'm going to try to do that less. So, Chucky Bear, what would you like to start us off with talking about horror movies?
I have a big problem with certain horror movies.
Explain and expand.
Jump scares. Those are not scary. You're just trying to shock us. No, I want to be scared to the core. I want to be scared to be watching the screen. I don't just want to be scared of something jumping out at me. That's not scary. That's just, ooh, shock.
That's just like an initial reaction to something. That's like a fight or flight, not it. So you prefer the ones that like really build up the suspense.
Yes, I want foreplay in the movie. I want it to build. I want to actually be scared. At the end of the movie, I want to be scared leaving.
I will say this, and this is going to sound super dirty, but I don't know how else to say it, but the way they build the tension should practically be like edging. Like you get that tension, that suspense, and then it's even scarier when you're expecting the jump scare, like they're building, you're like, the jump scare's coming, and then it doesn't. And it's like, no, you're not going to scream until I say you can scream.
Yes, that is what we need in horror movies.
I agree. I've definitely seen that in certain movies, and even if the movie itself wasn't great, I definitely remember the movie. There was specifically, this would have been just as in place in the 90s toy video, but I remember going to Blockbuster in the day of VHS tapes, and being a small child whose parents were not quite ready for me to watch R-rated films yet, we had to find a PG horror movie. And we found one called Burnt Offerings, which is about this family that moves into this house. Well, they're renting it, but the upstairs is where like the brother and sister they rent it from's mother lives, and it's kind of like they feel like the mother's watching them and all that. But the thing is, the film was kind of terrible. Like, it really didn't have a good payoff and all that. The ending didn't really make sense. Like, you get the sense that like the spirit of the mother took over the wife's body, and then like the husband and child died, and now I don't know. It didn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But the thing the film was great at is you kept expecting a jump scare, and there were no jump scares. So It was like being edged the entire hour and a half the movie was going on.
That type of movie I could get behind. Something like that.
It wasn't a good movie, but I still remember it to this day because it did that, which was not what a lot of the films at the time were doing. So, you know, I agree completely. What else do you look for in a horror movie?
That's a good question. Terrifying monsters.
Okay.
Or not even monsters, just memorable evil entities. Just something that lets you remember what's going on.
What specifically do you find what would you personally find terrifying? Are we talking like an animatronic monster or like a very like sinister serial killer? Like what in the mind of Chucky Bear constitutes a memorable villain?
Something small and simple. Have you heard of the Uncanny Valley?
Yes.
I want something like that.
So the movie, what was it called? Megan?
I haven't seen that one.
I haven't seen it either, but I know it involves this like animatronic
Yes.
doll protector, and it's fucking, I can't even, yeah, that freaks me out so much I can't even watch those.
That's what I want. I want something that's just so small, you have no idea what it is, but you're just terrified. This one thing.
So something's just slightly off.
Something slightly off, but you know in your core that that is not right, but you don't know exactly what it is.
Okay.
So you go through the entire movie wondering what this is. You get scared of the villain, you get scared of the entity, whatever it is.
So the idea could be someone who is like a monster or an alien, and the only thing that denotes that is their eyes are just like slightly too far apart, or their forehead's just slightly too big, kind of deal.
Yes, something that just subconsciously makes you feel uneasy.
Okay, yeah, no, I can get behind that. No, I definitely think yes. So that's you basically want a uncanny valley monster to just edge you for an hour and a half, and that's what you want in a horror movie?
That's my dream.
Oh, I mean, no kink shame, no kink shame, but speaking of kinks, I will say I can at least partly blame horror movies for the fact that I am a boob man. It's not what you think. It's not that like horror movies are just full of amazing boobs, though to an extent slasher movies kind of are.
They are.
My parents growing up were perfectly fine with a film with like language or violence, but my mom watched every horror movie beforehand to make sure there were no boobs. So if there were boobs, she would fast forward through it. So the fact that like watching teenagers get disemboweled was good, wholesome family entertainment, but even like a glimpse of boobs was forbidden. It's like, no, I must see more boobs. Like, so yes, horror movies are the reason that like I see a pair of big old titties and I'm like, oh yeah, I'd die for those. Like, I'd risk evisceration to get a sweet up close look at them titties.
I mean, obviously, who wouldn't?
So my favorite series as a kid was the Nightmare on Elm Street series. Like I had the whole like VHS box set. And I remember there's a scene in number 3 Dream Warriors that's like, I have the weirdest boner right now, because that was exactly one of those scenes where this kid is dreaming and the nurse he has a crush on is like beckoning him, and she takes her top off and they're making out on the bed, and suddenly her tongue is Freddy's tongue, and it's like you're full mast at that point. You're like, oh god, no, why? This hot nurse just became Freddy Krueger.
Oh, and something awakened in you at that day.
No, it didn't, but like it was like, I'm not into burn victims, but it was kind of one of those like, it was like, it's like you went from hard to flaccid like instantly, because like Robert Englund is not the world's most handsome man, but like Freddy Krueger is even worse.
Yeah.
Like great actor, but not a handsome man. And then seeing him with burn makeup on doesn't. I don't think anybody's going, yeah, give me a piece of that. Like, to the point where I know it didn't awaken anything, because I saw there was like a photo shoot of some like lewd cosplayer and she was doing Freddy Krueger. I'm like, do not want. Like, no, I'm gonna skip right over that gallery. That I could go my whole life without that. God damn. But no, speaking of like horror movies and sex, would you agree that there is a lot in horror movies of, I mean, they play it up for entertainment, but there's definitely like a morality lesson in these.
There is.
And the most, in your face one is all the slasher films like Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, where it's like, if you go out into the woods, if you drink beer, if you smoke weed, if you have sex, you're gonna die. But if you have zero fun, the killer's not gonna kill you because you haven't even really lived yet. It's kind of like a late abortion more than murder, and they're not really into that.
perfect analogy.
Like,
it's perfect.
You haven't done anything. It's not even murder. It's just a very late abortion.
Yeah, I definitely agree with all that.
There was an episode of Boy Meets World that parodied horror movies. And it was like a dream episode, but like first off, Feeny dies, and they're like, "Oh no, we're in a horror movie. How does it work?" And it's like, "Oh, well, if you're a virgin, you live, cause only virgins live." And one of the guys goes, "I'm dead. I'm dead." The kind of man slut of the show goes like, "I'm as sick as you can possibly get without actually dying." The main character's like, "I'm safe, unfortunately." And then they go, "Wait, the teacher died. Go teacher, go teacher, go teacher." Like, oh, there were way more sex jokes in Boy Meets World than I realized as a child.
All child shows, so many sex jokes.
I remember there was an episode where they entered middle school and the man slut character like is wearing fake sideburns, and they meet the girl, Topanga, and she's grown boobs over the summer, and they're like, "Oh, you," and they're trying to tell her she looks different without pointing it out, and she goes, "Yeah, well, at least what I grew were real," and pulls the sideburns off. No, but like that was always the thing. Like, it was always, if you see a character in one of these films and they're drinking a beer or they're smoking weed, or it's clear that this one couple is banging, like,
they're dead.
There's like very few instances where that doesn't occur. Like one movie that Mystery Science Theater showed called Hobgoblins, where this one couple would literally yell the phrase "van" and then hop in the van, and you thought at least one of the characters died, and at the end it turned out he was alive. And what happened? They go "van," and then after they've defeated whatever these monsters were. But no, you always knew those characters were gonna die. Then like the girl who's like in the back of the van just reading a book is like, "Oh well, she's gonna make it till the end." Like, yeah. It's like yeah, if you're, it's like the children of the 80s, their parents, the people making the movies were like, "Yeah, don't have any fun, and then you'll get to live."
Trying to force their values on us.
I mean, it never really stops, does it?
No, it doesn't.
So we're not really like following a formula with this in any way. So we're just gonna kind of go with things as we think it. So Chucky Bear, in your opinion, what is the most iconic either specific kill or type of kill in horror movies? Like death scenes, it can be either like, oh, a dude getting cut in half by a chainsaw, or it could be like a specific scene in a specific movie.
This is kind of hard.
It is.
Personally,
just like that boner before Freddy's tongue came out.
I mean, yeah. For me, it would probably be some sort of demon possession. Just a demon coming in.
Okay, so like the person gets possessed and then that kills them, or the demon possesses a person and then the demon kills somebody with that person's body?
The demon possesses them and they kill someone with that body. Just being forced to do something.
Okay.
That's iconic to me.
So like the way I always picture this scene is like, they're like talking to the friend or whatever, and it's like, Steve, and then you see Steve's eyes, and they're the demon's eyes, and then Steve turns around and just offs somebody.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. Yeah, that's pretty good. God, you think I'd have an answer for my own question, but
it's hard.
Actually,
there's so many good ones.
So for me, the most iconic kill, it's similar in that it always happens during a conversation. But mine is that, like, the two people are having a conversation, the one stops responding, the person turns around, and the killer has gutted them from behind.
Yes.
Like in Candyman or like Jason with his machete. It's always like out of nowhere, mid conversation, the killer has just crept up behind them and ended them.
I enjoy that, but at the same time, if you see enough horror movies, you expect it.
I mean, there is a certain... we don't watch... It is rare. Horror movies are predictable enough that we're okay with the same thing time and time again. It is comforting. It's like a very nice bowl of Kraft macaroni and cheese. You know exactly what to expect.
Yeah.
It's not the greatest thing in the world, but it's familiar and it's comforting. But it's also, when it is different, it's innovative and we like it.
Yeah.
And then we go right back to comfort.
That is true.
I feel like for a long time, companies were making horror films because they could follow a formula and then they could easily just cash in.
Time and tested, just quick way to make money.
Mm-hmm.
Not much thought behind it, but still good. People still enjoy it.
Like, it was like, we have the formula. Young people, violence,
Big titties.
big titties, and that's it. Actually, in the very early days of Netflix, before it was the powerhouse that it is today, one thing I realized when I was watching it when it first became a streaming service is they had an awful lot of movies that were softcore porn films with the sex scenes cut out to turn them into horror films.
Oh.
So you'd be like, The Vampire's Kiss, and it's like, all right, some dumb horror movie, let's watch it. And then you'd be like looking at the names and go like, these are porn names. And so it's like they literally, because this film was meant to be a like filler scene, sex scene, that's just been all you have are the filler scenes. You really took out what was honestly the best parts of the film, not because they were sex scenes, because that's the scenes they put effort into.
Yeah.
And you're just literally, it's like watching the filler arcs of an anime where they're just kind of like shoehorning it in and they don't really give a shit. And it's like, I mean, this could have been a halfway decent porno, but like, It's a shit horror movie.
But now they get 2 streams of revenue.
It's true. Actually, there was it was made to be a horror movie, starring Ron Jeremy, the famous ugly-looking porn star.
I'm amazed at that guy.
Called The One-Eyed Monster.
Oh, God.
Where the plot is Ron Jeremy and a porn crew are filming a porno up in the mountains when an alien entity takes over specifically his penis, detaches, killing him, and starts hunting down the cast and crew as this claymation penis is jump scare attacking them.
I want a remake of this.
And literally the way they defeat it is this one veteran porn star who can control her Kegel exercises to no end, lures him to her snatch, at which point she can like clamp down until he explodes. And again, there was like no nudity in this film. There is a claymation monster penis, and that's it.
This needs to be made again.
I feel like it just needs to hit it needs to be shown in theaters every Halloween.
You know, it should.
Like, it was a legit, decently acted horror movie where you didn't know who was going to live because literally nobody in it was playing a virgin.
I need to watch that.
Yeah, it was on Netflix once upon a time. Again, this wasn't even in their, like, early days. Like, this was when they were established.
Oh, wow.
And it was like, wait, what is this?
Oh.
It was like, and it wasn't even like, I want to say it was a horror parody, but no, somebody wrote this. This was a labor of love from the cast and crew about an alien entity possessing Ron Jeremy's penis and just hunting people down.
A true masterpiece.
Mm-hmm.
Ahead of its time.
I don't know. I just think that kind of stuff, they definitely have that element of sex sells in horror movies.
They do.
And that's interesting for me because I grew up watching Vincent Price horror movies where, the old black and white, the guy, you know him, he does the speech in Thriller. Yeah. So, I mean, these were all old black and white films. Some of the films he did in the 70s had that more like camp gore, titties, but his old ones, like the 50s, 60s, it was all about the creepy atmosphere.
Yes.
Like, have you ever seen the original House on Haunted Hill?
I haven't, no.
It is probably my favorite horror movie of all time. It's like, in the remake of Castle Films, because William Castle directed the original House on Haunted Hill, and all kinds of low-budget horror films that usually have some gimmick. Dark Castle Films specifically was remaking his films for a modern audience, like more gore, more sex, more violence.
Okay.
So in the remake of House on Haunted Hill, the ghosts are real, they're hunting people down, and while there's definitely a murder mystery plot and all that in the original, at the end of it, you're left not knowing whether or not the ghosts were real or not. You're left thinking that to some extent they were, but it's never stated, and it's this unknown quantity of it that makes it even more terrifying.
That's what I want.
Mm-hmm. This idea that, was it all in your head? Was it just people trying to mess with you? Or was there a supernatural entity?
Yes. Oh, that sounds great.
And again, when you can build that level of suspense, you can make a otherwise terrible film memorable.
Yep.
I remember watching another very low budget film. In fact, it was one of those ones that like I rented it from Redbox because I wanted to pay $1 to watch a horror movie, but it was called something like The Yellow Brick Road. And it wasn't a Wizard of Oz thing, as you might be thinking.
Yeah.
It was about a film crew following in the steps of another film crew that disappeared.
Okay.
And like basically it wasn't, I wouldn't call it a good movie, but the level of just pressure this film had you feel, like the utter despair and hopelessness that you saw, because it was like a found footage film.
Yeah.
Like at one point you literally just see one of the like cast and crew as they're like walking this road, they're lost, they don't know where they're going, and she just turns and walks off a cliff.
Oh.
Like there's this like malevolent entity inspiring them to do this, but at the end of it you don't know if there is anything supernatural or they just got lost on their trip and like started suffering from exhaustion and dehydration and hunger. And it can take a bad film and be like, no, this is great, but unfortunately so many studios just don't seem to be willing to take that chance.
Too much of a risk.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds... Those types of movies. Mm-hmm. That's the type of horror I want to see.
Absolutely. There's the other... So there's two types of horror, just kind of going off of, again, no real rhyme or reason to how we're going about this. There's one type of horror that is stated that horror is the unexpected, meaning that if you see a clown at the circus, it's perfectly normal. But if that clown is on your lawn at midnight, scariest thing in the world, because that's not where he's supposed to be.
True.
And then, not exactly opposite from that, but the other way of horror that works really well is nostalgia plus danger. So they lure you in with the nostalgia. Like the Netflix series Fear Street did this really well. Like it starts out, you're in like a 90s era mall where and all that. And it's like, I remember this is comforting to me, this is nostalgia, and then suddenly danger. So it takes you into that safe space and then rips that safe space away from you.
Perfect.
Right? So when you watch horror movies, and I know you've stated that you like, the Uncanny Valley and the demon possession, but if you had to pick just one, do you prefer the supernatural killer or the perfectly normal human being who has decided to just be evil?
Supernatural, 100%.
Okay, why?
Again, the unknown. It's just something you're not normal with.
Okay.
Something that's not supposed to be there. Something that... How do I explain this? Or with the normal guy just going on a killing spree. Mm-hmm. Nowadays, you kind of just expect it.
It does happen way more often in real life than it should.
It does.
Like,
I want...
If anything, it's too real.
Just a little bit.
A little bit.
Just very little bit.
Too many Madden tournaments and whatnot have been shot up for me to be okay with watching the normal guy just go off the rails, I guess.
I mean, in those movies, you expect it. You know what's going to go on. With Supernatural, it can go any direction, really. Mm-hmm. They can have any type of monster, any type of effects. They can do what they want.
That's fair. I agree with you fully. I also really like cryptids and all that.
Yes.
So, I will say, there is one time where they combined the two and made it really good, and it's an episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Okay.
So, Buffy's mom brings home her new boyfriend, played by John Ritter from 8 Simple Rules for Dating My Teenage Daughter. The most friendly guy in the world. Mm-hmm. And he seems super friendly, but something's kind of off. And he also, at one point, displays, uncanny strength. And it is basically you find out that he's a robot that was created by a guy.
Okay.
And basically he wants to basically take Buffy and her mom back, kill them to preserve his perfect family. So you have this normal guy that something's a little off about him. Mm-hmm. So you get that uncanny valley.
Oh, yes.
And then he's a sentient robot. Oh. So you get the supernatural, you get the uncanny valley, and you get the normal guy.
Sounds perfect.
Where something's just a bit wrong. I highly recommend you watch that.
I'm going to look for that this weekend.
Mm-hmm. No, and I think, yeah, at one point of time, it was very much like, because there was, I don't want to say it this way, but like there was less evil in the mundane world, the normal guy becoming a killer, I feel like all of that worked way better in a pre-Columbine world.
It did.
Like nowadays, the idea that some seemingly normal individual can just go off the deep end is just too close for comfort.
It is. When you watch a movie, you don't want to think about the real world.
No.
You want to be taken out of it, and that's just too close.
So, when it comes to these supernatural creatures, do you prefer that we see them or that we have to wait to see them for a very long time?
It depends.
Okay.
The movie Signs.
Mm-hmm.
I loved how we didn't see them until towards the end. Just that build-up.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed that movie. Great movie.
I liked it too. I know a lot of people rip on it now, but I enjoyed it when I first saw it. Yeah.
It worked. But at the same time, I want to know what they're facing in some movies.
Okay.
I like them both.
I will say, I feel like those of us that grew up in the 90s and the early 2000s and all that missed out because so the movie Alien by Ridley Scott, like the original one, not Aliens and all that, like where you see him all the time. But in the original Alien movie, you only caught glimpses of the creature until the very end. And that was what really built it up, is you didn't know quite what they were dealing with. Well, we grew up seeing all of these alien toys, so we knew what the alien looked like well before we were ever old enough to see that movie. So when I, as like an adult, finally saw Alien, it didn't have that same punch because I knew what the thing looked like.
Yep.
I feel like in certain cases, not knowing what it looks like is good. But then, again, like you sometimes, I feel like you do need to see it at least once.
At least once.
Mm-hmm.
Forget what it's called. Cloverfield.
Yes.
I wish we saw the monster a bit more. In that type of movie, I would have liked to have seen it a little more.
That movie gave me a headache just from the way that the camera style.
It did. I mean, Blair Witch Project did the same with
Blair Witch, you never actually saw the monster. How do you feel about that?
I love that movie.
Mm-hmm.
The video, how you're watching it through the video, that did give me a headache.
Yeah.
But it was a good, unknowing, out in the woods, something evil, something happening. I did enjoy that.
Yeah, I mean, that's why that movie made so much money, is because it gave people that. So, I guess we can't do this without talking about the elephant in any horror film discussion. How do you feel about horror movie sequels?
I'm a little hit or miss on those.
Mm-hmm. What would be an example of one that you actually think the sequel is better, and one that you think that, wow, they should have just stopped at one?
I really don't see any sequel as better. I see sequels as, this was a good continuation. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed Insidious. Insidious 2, it was decent.
I definitely thought Insidious 2 was like, it would have been fine if we left it at the 1.
You would have, but it was still an enjoyable watch.
It was. I will say there's one film series that I think there's a sequel that is better than the original and is probably the best film in the entire series. We talked about it earlier in the video. Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors was by far the best film in all 7 of the original movies.
They had time to perfect what they were trying to do.
Well, so the first one was just, you die in the dream, you die in real life, just like The Matrix or Canada. And then you had the second film, which is just a euphemism for being gay. And that's been confirmed by the director, is that, because Freddy's trying to take over the boy's body, but it's really literally just an entire, amalgam of, the being, there's something inside you, in, the 80s version of, Being Gay, the horror movie. It's the most homoerotic slasher film of all time.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember watching it going and not even in a bad one, this is kind of gay. And apparently the director has confirmed, he's as a gay man, I made a film that was about the inner struggles of being gay as a gay man in the 80s, and we just happened to use Freddy Krueger as the I feel like as a gay man, you probably shouldn't be the person on the inside is Freddy Krueger. I feel like that's kind of not doing your, culture justice. But
I mean, for the time, that's how people saw them.
The other one I will say, Candyman 2 where they really expanded on the Candyman legend was actually really good. Candyman 3, not so much, but where like Candyman 1, absolutely amazing film.
Yeah.
Tony Todd, fantastic. Apparently a dick in real life, but doesn't like to talk to fans at the conventions, according to some friends I know. But no, Candyman 1, fantastic, but Candyman 2 somehow just mwah. I mean, putting a restaging a film from Chicago to New Orleans is always a good choice. New Orleans over Chicago any day of the week.
Of course.
But no, I will say that like those two are like rare examples. But the one series that I feel like they should have just never made a sequel, Halloween.
Yeah.
Like literally the first time we got a decent sequel was like 4 years ago with the one just Halloween, where they literally said all the other sequels are canceled.
They did justice.
Like, yeah, that was really good. But then they made 2 sequels of that kind of sucked. So, like, you really... I get it. These films are short. They're cheap to make. You know, couple slashes of the knife, a weird mask, show some boobs. You've got yourself a couple million. But I just feel like, you know, you really need... You're doing your creation... Well, the studios are doing the original creators' vision a disservice.
They are. But they want their money, and that's all that matters.
They do. Have you ever seen the film series Trick or Treat? Or not, the film Trick or Treat.
I haven't.
I highly recommend it. The basic concept, it's a series, it's one of those, and this is what we're going to talk about next, it's an anthology. Okay. Or like, you know, the 4 movies that are like 3 or 4 shorter stories all linked somehow.
Okay.
Like Tales of Terror, Tales from the Crypt. Trick or Treat is all about this town in Ohio that's totally not Athens, Ohio. It totally is. Either that or Berea. It's like a mix of Berea and Athens. It looks like Berea. It's got the party like Athens. Which, by the way, people, if you're ever in Ohio, take a trip to Berea. There's the entire main street is full of Halloween stores year-round, all owned by the same family that opened a 5 and Dime there 2 weeks before the Great Depression hit, and they're still going strong.
Oh wow!
Oh yeah, it's really cool. There's also a tabletop game store, a comic book store, and a vintage toy store.
Ooh.
Oh, it's really cool. I highly recommend it. But so with Trick or Treat, they were gonna make a sequel, and they teased it and all that. But they finally went, we don't feel like we can do it justice, so we're not gonna do it.
I respect that.
I've never had so much respect for a studio.
That's what they need to start learning to do.
Mm-hmm.
Know when to quit. Know when to stop. Know when you made something perfect and just go with that.
Exactly. And I also think, but with the idea of the anthology series, is that, you know, when you have a horror movie that is more like 3 or 4 short horror films, you can tell a compelling tale of terror without having to make it run an hour and a half.
Yep.
Have you seen any of those? Do you have one that's a favorite that comes to mind?
You know, I really don't. I've never really watched those horror movies.
Okay. Well, I'll give a couple of my recommendations then. One, I of course recommend Trick or Treat. There's one that is, what is it called? It's called, I want to say it's called like Snoop Dogg's Hood of Horror or something like that, where it's like, or Tales from the Hood or something. I don't know. But it's basically, it starts with these 3 gang members heading to a mortuary to pick up some drugs that apparently have been left there. They're doing a pickup. But while they're there, the mortician is telling them the scary stories of how each person in the coffin in any of these, you know, in this mortuary in the middle of the hood. And so it's all that. But it also has one of the greatest opening scenes of any horror film, in that a horror film knows that they have to have a mix of, you have to laugh every once in a while.
Yeah.
But these 3 guys are walking up to the mortuary, and one of them goes, "Man, I just don't get refried beans. I mean, why the hell would you want to refry some beans? Couldn't you just fry them up right the first time?"
I fully agree with that statement.
Like, again, anyone who's made refried beans knows how ignorant that statement is, but I barely remember that movie and its details, but I remember that scene vividly. Because sometimes there's just a great one.
Yes.
Some people might know the series Creepshow, which was actually a film originally written by Stephen King. The first Creepshow was written by Stephen King, and it was made in the idea of the Tales from the Crypt comic books.
Okay.
So it was, it was the Creeper and all that. It wasn't, now there isn't actually a comic book series, but there wasn't. It was just like, this was their version, and it was like 3 Tales of Terror. The original Tales from the Crypt, before it was a TV series, was a movie of much the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's a Trilogy of Terror, which, and then, but my absolute favorite, is called Terror Tract. And it was a one-shot anthology movie, once again starring John Ritter, who, despite him being a comedic actor, had some pretty good horror chops.
Okay.
But the setup of this movie is that he is a realtor, and he's showing potential buyers houses in various neighborhoods. And each of the houses, he has to tell them what horrible thing happened there because of the full disclosure clause.
Oh.
Which Charlie and I used to work in the mortgage industry, so we've heard about that from time to time.
Yeah.
But so it would be like, hey, this is a really nice house. And the couple would be like, oh, is there anything else we should know? And he'd go, well, in the sake of full disclosure, and you'd watch and there'd be the video, and then he'd go, so do you want to make an offer? And I remember one of the little shorts was literally about actor Bryan Cranston doing battle with his home psychotic helper monkey.
Oh.
Well, he was a pet monkey. It wasn't a helper monkey, but like they find this monkey, and his daughter's like, "Can we keep him, Daddy?" And he's like, "Not really." Well, the monkey turns out to be fully evil.
Oh.
And so there's just this like capuchin monkey that's like randomly killing people. While all the while, like, Bryan Cranston is like, nobody believes him that this monkey is evil.
I want a full-length film of this.
Right? And it's great. And it's one of those things where it's like we can't make a full movie about these concepts, but let's make like a movie with like 3 short movies and like have something to tie them all together. There was the TV show Tales from the Dark Side.
Yep.
And they made a movie. And in the movie, the thing that took all of these tales together is there was a book called Tales from the Dark Side, and this woman is reading them to a child, and the weird thing about it is that the child is just buying time because this woman is a witch who has him in a cage and is planning to cook him. And so he's like, will you read me another story? So she's reading him these absolutely awful horror stories. And in the end, he pushes her into the oven, like, because she, like, lets her guard down, but, like...
You want to eat free-range children. Don't cage them.
That's right. If you cage them, they'll only make themselves all stringy.
Yeah, exactly. Don't these witches know anything?
Have you ever seen the show Dexter?
I have the first few seasons.
Okay, that's fair. This is not actually about the TV show, but the books, which the books are terrible. Like, the first book pretty much follows the first season, sort of. The author is not a good author. Jeff Lindsay, he's not great. But there was this later one, so like Dexter's brother in the first season dies.
Yeah.
No, he gets away in the first one. So in like book 5, Dexter's going up. Well, first of all, his dark passenger, which he only references as like the urge to kill in the show, is an actual thing, and it goes away, and so he doesn't know what to do. And not only do you find out that the dark passenger is the demon spawn of the god Moloch, that inhabits people. It's really dumb. It sounds cooler than it is.
Yeah, it sounds pretty decent.
But they don't do it well. But so he and his brother, in order to, he does end up getting his dark passenger back, they go up against a cult of cannibals. And there's basically a showdown between Dexter, his brother, and the cult at like an abandoned amusement park. This seems more like a Dirty Harry movie than Dexter. But they talk about, because the cult does have like willing victims, and they're like, well, you have your victim, and they're like, no, it tastes so much better if it's unwilling. And it's like, that is the exact opposite. Like, the adrenaline makes it so tender. Like, that is the exact opposite of how, that's why when you slaughter a lamb, you come up behind it and slit its throat, because you don't want it to see the knife, because adrenaline ruins the meat. And it's like, dude, not only are you a shitty writer, you can't even look up the effects of adrenaline on meat. It is not a tenderizer.
No.
Like, It's like, dude, I don't care if the story's kind of dumb. At least get basic facts right.
Do a little research.
Like,
Put some pride into your work.
Like, you just decided that adrenaline made meat more tender, and it doesn't. I don't know. I was very disappointed in that series.
Yeah.
Well, so I guess that's a good transition into like horror movies based on books. And in certain cases, how much do you read? I don't know.
I read a lot when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
Died down a bit, but
okay.
Trying to get back into it. Lovecraft books. That's what I'm trying to get into.
H.P. Lovecraft, amazing.
Yes.
And the movies never do his books justice.
They don't.
But I will say, so there's a lot of times where the book will be better than the movie, not just with horror movies, but in general.
Yeah.
But there are a few times where the movie is better than the book. And nothing is more true of this. Technically, you could go with Jurassic Park. Meanwhile, but Jurassic Park itself is more of like an adventure movie, while the book is a horror book.
Yeah.
So that changed. Jaws. I watched the movie Jaws.
Mm-hmm.
I read the book Jaws. And there's some differences that will always put Jaws, the movie, despite the fact that the book has much more horrific descriptions of the shark attacks.
Yeah.
And the main two things being, one, the marine biologist in the movie is just kind of the marine biologist character.
Yeah.
In the book, he's the brother of one of the sheriff's wife's friends from like college and has an affair with the sheriff's wife, which didn't need to be in there.
You need some sex in a book.
I mean, maybe, but like, I just felt like, there was no reason for the sheriff's wife to be unfaithful. That had nothing to do with the shark attacks.
No, but sex sells.
And and then meanwhile, so the thing is, he dies in the book. He lives in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the book, you're like, yeah, you son of a bitch, don't sleep with the sheriff's wife, even though it's not like the sheriff kills him. The shark just eats through the cage that he's in. And then in Jaws, the epic scene where the fisherman Quint gets eaten as the boat's going down. No, not how it happens. Right after they blow up the shark in the book, as the boat's going down, Quint's foot gets caught in the rigging and he gets dragged under. And it's like, so he's not even killed by the shark. He's killed by, literally the shark was dead by the time Quint dies. And it's like, wait, so you just killed him off for like no reason.
No reason. Just have another shark come in and eat him.
And then, so like, at the end, the marine biologist is dead. The fisherman is dead, and it's just the sheriff kicking back to shore by himself, as opposed to in the movie where Quint dies epically. The marine biologist and sheriff live, and they're just kind of laughing and then start to make their way back to shore.
Yeah.
Everything about the film is superior. Because
sounds like it.
Like, it's a triumph of man over monster versus just, wow, this town kind of sucks. Like, and wow, sometimes life's just a bitch.
It is.
That's not what I want. I don't want life is a bitch. I want punishment, consequence, and redemption in a horror movie. Like,
or even no redemption, no punishment. Let the evil win.
Sometimes when evil wins, it's even better. Like, especially, and feel free to disagree with me on this, but when you have that movie in a horror movie at the very end where it's like, cool, the final girl got away, and it's like, oh, no, they didn't.
It can work.
Mm-hmm.
It can definitely work.
Yeah.
But they typically fail.
True. A lot of times it's more of like, say, a jump scare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I would prefer just all the good guys, they just die. They don't live. There's no hope, no salvation. You just know they are going to die. There is no escape. They're just marching to their death.
That's fair. So, have you seen the film The Cabin in the Woods?
Yes.
All right, so this is going to be the last thing we talk about for this video, because I feel like this is the perfect thing to talk about for the video finale. What was your thoughts on Cabin in the Woods?
I really enjoyed that movie. Mm-hmm. Secret government around the world sacrificing people to Lovecraftian monsters, essentially.
And that, everything. Like, all of the horror movie tropes we know...
tied together.
They're tropes because they're part of a ritual.
Yes.
And the simple fact that, like, people have to choose their fate, that, actually, let's bring up here, real quick. All right, so we've just pulled up the board from Cabin in the Woods. Let's take a look at some of these things. I mean, you got your classic, the werewolf, the abilities of a beast with, you know, the intelligence of a man. Classic.
Yes.
Of course, voted on by the finance department.
I mean, what else would they vote on?
Exactly. What one do you like here on this?
Oh, sexy witches.
I mean, yes.
You got to go with that.
It's like, look, I might die, but I also might get laid.
Exactly.
Like as someone who is marrying a sexy witch in just over a month, I can confirm it's worth the risk. Hey, literally the first time we were basically hooking up, there was a part of me driving to that meetup going, I might be walking into like a pentagram candles and becoming a virgin sacrifice, but you know what? Worth the risk.
Always worth the risk.
No, yeah, I always liked in this one, where is it? And nobody voted for him. Kevin. There's just some dude. Just some dude named Kevin. Or the fact that the Wranglers, which I would almost think would have well, to be fair, they're voting on what one they're gonna pick, so they wouldn't really know. But like, I like that the people who have to wrangle all these monsters vote on the angry molesting tree. Like, that was always one of the things that was like, there are certain moments and it's like, I know sex sells, but like in the original Evil Dead, where that girl straight up gets molested by a tree, it's like, that was unpleasant to watch.
But they clearly want to have a good time.
It's kind of like the movie Last House on the Left, or its remake, where I watched it with some friends, and there's just like, there's a scene where a girl gets raped and murdered, and the scene goes on for way too long.
Oh, no.
And apparently when they were filming it in the original movie, everyone was just so disturbed. The crew, the actors were like, okay, we're breaking for lunch because
yeah, take the day off.
This is fucking messed up.
Yeah.
Like, so it's like, you know, don't leave the, you know, yeah, you can murder two teens while they're having sex in a horror movie, but all sex should be consensual. Like,
it needs to be.
Like, it just makes you feel icky if it's not.
Scare me, don't make me feel disgusted.
Mm-hmm. Another one on here, the clowns. How do you feel about clowns?
I quite enjoy clowns.
I actually do too.
They
I know a lot of
me.
people are afraid of them. I love killer clowns from outer space. I'll be honest, you put a hot girl in clown makeup, I'm into it. Like,
yeah.
A lot of people are like, no, clowns are definitely a no-go. I don't mind them.
I don't see the terror in them.
Like, I think it's weird that people can be attracted to Harley Quinn, but just, like, have a fear of clowns in general.
That one just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, no, seriously. It's like, either you like them or you don't.
Yeah.
Like, it's, for me, it's also, like, with clowns, I think it's, like, the perfect horror trope in that horror is the corruption of something wholesome.
Yeah.
Like, that's why Pennywise is so terrifying.
Yes.
It's not that clowns are innately scary, it's that clowns are delightful and funny and wholesome and innocent, and then when you corrupt that into either evil aliens, a demonic I guess Pennywise was also kind of an alien. It's really...
That's like another episode to get into.
It's convoluted. But, like, so you take a clown and you corrupt the clown, and now the clown is scary, but I don't find clowns innately scary.
No.
And I feel like because so many people are innately scared of clowns, it kind of loses something in the modern era where, because, you know, kids in the 50s weren't afraid of clowns. They were selling them breakfast cereals and you were watching the Bozo Show on Saturday. Like, yeah, I feel like clowns are less scary now because people find them innately scary.
Yeah.
Let's see, what else do we got?
The unicorn.
Yeah. The fact that it just, like, impaled a guy in that movie.
It's perfect.
I mean, remember, did you ever play Oblivion?
I did.
Remember there's that, like, one Daedric quest where you have to get the unicorn horn?
Yep.
And I always remember the best way to do it, because that unicorn was a bitch to beat, and it would attack you as soon as you drew a weapon. And this was the trick to beating it, it was guarded by 2 Minotaurs.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't draw a weapon. The Minotaurs would see you and draw weapons, causing the unicorn to attack them, kill them. You then get on top of the unicorn, ride him to a bridge, make sure your water-breathing ring is equipped. You jump off the bridge, the unicorn will drown before you reach the surface, and then you can just take its horn.
So easy, so simple.
It's like drowning kittens in a bag or something. Like, you can, just drown the unicorn, and you can get its horn cruelty-free? Like, it's still pretty cruel.
It did it on its own.
I also just love the fact that these two guys, are like guarding a unicorn going, look, if we ever have to defend this thing, it's going to fucking maul us. Like, that seems like a real... Why how have you managed to not get killed? Like, I assume I'm not the first person to come upon the unicorn and its bodyguards. Like,
because you went in peace.
Poor AI. Poor AI.
Poor AI.
Yeah.
Great game, poor AI.
Yeah. No, let's see. What do we got? Dragon Bat. I always love that when they, like, combine two kind of scary things into one, like, you know, ultimately, like, we really realize how effective Batman is as a superhero, because the idea of a man and a bat, meaning you also have Man-Bat, is utterly terrifying.
Yeah.
So it's like, and there's all those, like, things where Batman actually gets turned into, like, a half-bat creature, and it's like, well, that's some nightmare fuel right there.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, there's the one in the film that they actually encounter, the zombie redneck torture family.
Love that family.
Yeah, that's very Hills Have Eyes, or just zombies in general. I mean, it's this idea of the unknown, and the you know, there are people, you ain't from around here, are you? Like,
stay away from those places.
Or I love that they had the Deadites just because the film was by Sam Raimi, and that's what made him famous.
Yeah. But the story department chose him, of course. Great story.
I will say that, you know, I'm sure that's on purpose.
Oh,
he's like
exactly.
the writer, yeah.
Yeah.
But no, so then we have the Hell Lord, which is, of course, like the Cenobites from Hellraiser.
Yep.
Which, in and of itself, is a film that, while I will say the sequels had diminishing returns, it was one of those things where you kind of knew what you were getting into, where it's like, people are going to die horribly. They're going to get tortured. You're kind of going to have a boner.
Yeah.
You're not going to want to have this boner.
True.
And you're going to wonder if you should go buy a whip. Like, and some leather. Like,
you always need those.
Right. No, so that, I mean, again, I actually just recently watched the, like, remake of Hellraiser.
Okay.
It wasn't bad.
I couldn't get into it.
Okay.
I wanted
the one
to watch
with, like, where the main girl's, like, brother was gay and all that one? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I love that I can say the fact that there's now, like, a gay character is how you differentiate it from the other Hellraisers. Like, kind of like the new... I didn't like the new Candyman. And oddly enough, that one is hard to differentiate from the old one, besides the fact that there's, like, a gay couple in this one. But, like, that one was just not as good as the original. But, yeah, no, Hellraiser is an interesting series.
I wanted to watch it so bad, I just couldn't focus on it. I just kept
and sometimes
away.
you're just not feeling it.
Yeah.
So there was this, what was it called? There's a TV series called Slasher. And
okay, I think I've seen some of this.
So the very first season involves a woman who basically, born under horrific circumstances. It was on Halloween. Her parents, some killer comes in, kills her dad. Her mother is currently pregnant with her.
Yeah.
Basically cuts her mother open, takes her out, delivers her.
Yes.
Kills the mother. And now that woman has just moved back into town. And suddenly somebody is stalking her.
I love that season.
That was great. Did you see the second season?
2 episodes, if that. Turn it off. No.
That's the thing.
More.
I didn't finish it either, because you find out the second season is about a group of people that decided to beat up this girl for, you know, encouraging at a summer. They're all counselors at a summer camp or whatever. She kisses one of the girl's boyfriends, so they decide to beat her up, accidentally take it too far, think she died, realize she's not dead, but then now they have to kill her.
Logic.
Right,
sure,
and so
why
now
not?
Because this summer camp or whatever is being turned into something else, they've come back to, like, dig up the body, and someone's killing them off one by one. It's like, every last one of you deserves to die.
They do.
Like, even though there's, like, the slut's gonna die, the stoner's gonna die, like, ultimately, these people haven't been doing anything too terrible, so you're still rooting for them to all survive. Because otherwise, the death doesn't really mean that much when it's like, if you're going, I hope you die, that takes away the tension.
It does.
So it's like you gotta, there's gotta be this level of, even if you know it's not going to happen, you have to want them to live.
You need some sliver of hope.
Exactly. What else can we talk about here? I'm kind of sad. I would watch a movie about dismemberment goblins.
Oh God, yes.
Like imagine too if, like, it could be like a way where, they'll take your arm off, but, like, it instantly heals. So, like, and they're, like, using people's body parts to make, like, new bodies.
I would watch that.
Right? So it's like, oh, all of a sudden you see this like weird humanoid form with the goblin's head and like 18 human arms and like just complete body horror, but like they take a body part, but you're still alive. Like,
you gave me an idea for a D&D character.
The Mecha Goblin.
Yes.
just all my character is essentially the creation of Sid from Toy Story. The one horror character I never fully found all that scary, the Scarecrow folk. It's like, look, you're made of kindling. I have a lighter. Yeah, like twins, because twins are just creepy.
Oh yeah.
I always loved the idea of, I mean, all the way back to like Headless Horseman, but Jack-o'-lantern, which I assume is a man who a flaming pumpkin is his head. Like that's, I don't even find pumpkins all that scary, but the thought of that is just nuts.
It is, but I wouldn't mind dying by a man with a jack-o'-lantern
If you can throw an incendiary pumpkin at your head, you know what, man?
Kill me. Take
like
me out.
I'm sorry, I lost to a superior foe.
Exactly.
Dolls, though. I find dolls super fucking creepy.
They are. I can't do them.
When my grandmother was moving out of her house to a retirement home, she had this, like, China doll that was, like, a little, like, 2.5 feet tall.
Yeah.
Found the thing creepy as fuck.
Oh, yeah.
For when all the furniture was moved out and all that, my dad put it on a chair in the master bedroom of her house so that when anyone showing the house would walk into that room, the doll would just be staring at you.
I love that.
And I'm so happy now because after she passed, because it was at her, she kept it. It was at her apartment at the retirement home. But when she passed, my aunt got it, and my aunt now lives in California, so it is as far away from me as it could possibly be and still be in the same country. Yeah. And that's exactly where it needs to stay. Like, that thing does not need to be any closer to me.
No.
Like, I would rather hang out in a room with Kevin than that doll.
I mean, to be fair.
Like, I don't know. It's Kevin's just some dude. Like,
he's just random.
I think I really want to know, not so much, like, I assume Kevin's like a serial killer or something. What specifically would you have used to summon Kevin in that weird basement room?
See, in my headcanon, Kevin's an accountant.
It would be like the pot of chili, like in The Office.
Yes.
You just decide it's like, oh, look at all these antiques, and oh, a hot pot of chili. Let's take a bite.
And then poof.
Nothing safer than mysterious chili of unknown origin. But no, I feel like, yes, there's all these tropes in horror movies, and a lot of times you can kind of tell what's going to happen. And yeah, we love it when it subverts our expectations, but I think there's a certain level of comfort in horror movies, and that's why, yeah, the genre has been able to last as long as it has. Like,
yeah.
We've seen all kinds of film genres like rise and fall, and eventually they'll get like a resurgence. Mm-hmm. But the one constant, really, besides like cop dramas, is horror movies.
Yeah.
Because, yes, a lot of times you might know what to expect, but I feel like we're okay with that.
We are.
And there's ways to do it right, there's ways to do it wrong, but I don't feel like I've ever, no matter how bad it was, with one exception, I'm not even going to get into it. It's the movie called High Tension. It's dumb. Just take my word on it. But I feel like in most cases, even if it's not a good horror movie, you never look at it and go, I just wasted an hour and a half of my life.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, okay, that was fine. Is worst case scenario.
Exactly.
And I think that ultimately is the beauty of horror movies, is that despite the fact that the subject matter of the movie is anything but comforting, we find it comforting.
Yeah, I agree. 100%.
Absolutely. And I think that's where we're going to call the video today, guys. After all, we have been ranting for about an hour. Please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Check the links. Join the Patreon. Buy a mini. And until next time, I'm Mr. Sean. This is my co-host,
Chucky Bear.
And until next time, everybody, we hope that you alpha great day and an even beta tomorrow. Bye-bye.